Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Apollo's Odyssey. I'm your host, Apolla Asteria, and tonight's show, I am going to be going over this habitable planet. Theoretically, it is supposedly habitable that scientists found, NASA actually found. So there's a lot coming out about these planets that are supposedly habitable, or can they have life? Is it possible? I'm going to pull up some articles on this tonight because this is something that's coming out a lot in the last week because a lot of these new planets were just kind of released. Sorry, change these slides here. So yeah, should be interesting. Also, just kind of the latest in UFO disclosure and kind of scientific disclosure breakthroughs that I'll be getting into tonight, which include a new breakthrough in warp drive technology. Scientists who basically decided they wanted to hunt UFOs down with nuclear powered technology. So I'll be getting into that. And new UAP legislation that will most likely be passed. And let me see here. Oh, and most exciting of all, an anomaly that was found under the ground near the Great Pyramid with radar penetrating technology. So I'm going to be covering all that tonight and more. So good to see everyone here tonight. Scotzer, good to see you. Logical Spark, good to see you on here. I know I've been getting a lot of new subscribers lately, so I just want to say I really appreciate that. I appreciate it a lot. I've been building my show for some time now, so as much as you can share it, let other people know if you like this show. Also, please make sure you subscribe, which, by the way, I just made a new little commercial for that. Yeah, I just filmed that in DC around this time last year at the UAP Disclosure Press Conference. I don't know if you saw in that there was I was kind of in front of the Capitol building. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. Okay, so just getting started here. You know what? Before I get started tonight, I want to go ahead and share my art because I just made a new collection, and a lot of times I just wait till the end of the show to share this. But it's really important for me to sell my art because that's kind of what keeps my show going. It's the main thing that really keeps my show going and helps me travel around to conferences. And you've felt it, haven't you? The energy around you, pulsing with potential. But sometimes you need a bridge, a way to tap into that power. Introducing Shaman Spears. These handcrafted energy channeling devices are more than tools, they're extensions of yourself. Each bamboo staff is meticulously filled with magnetic and quartz materials designed to amplify your own energy. The sacred symbols passed down through generations act as a conduit, focusing your intentions. Shaman Spears. Not just a wand, not just a spear, but an ancient future fusion. Feel the power course through you. Unleash your potential. Visit www.shamanspears.com and claim your shaman spear today. Okay, so there it is, folks. Basically, on my site, shamanspears.com, I have a new collection. So please make sure you check that out. That is the Elemental Collection. So just going through the comments here, Hero here says, I know I'm just about ready for a new planet. Pretty cool. So good thing you say that, because tonight I'll be covering that. So, all right, let's get started here. Okay, so this is really important in UAP disclosure news, because basically Congressman Tim Burchett just passed a legislation for UAP transparency, more of that, which obviously kind of seemed like, the other month, like things a few months ago when Congress came out and they said that there had been no sign of extraterrestrial life, or the Pentagon basically came out and said that. Things have been like a little slow with UFO news, like what's being put out with the whole, phenomena. So it looks like we're going to be seeing a little more of this now again. So let's get into this here. So Representative Tim Burchett from Tennessee has introduced legislation that would force the president to direct federal agencies to make all documents on unidentified anomalous phenomena, aka UAPs or UFOs, available to the public within 279 days, and mandate the president provide a quarterly report on declassification of UAP records to the House. Burchett, the unofficial chair of the bipartisan UAP caucus, said he thinks the legislation is needed because he isn't convinced by the government denials surrounding UAPs. Whistleblower David Grush came forward last year saying the Pentagon was operating a secret UFO retrieval program. His claim sparked a congressional hearing on the subject and the formation of the caucus. The Department of Defense has denied these allegations, and All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which is tasked with investigating UAPs, issued a report saying that there was no evidence of extraterrestrial activity connected to UAPs. AARO said there was a proposed program called Kona Blue, which I'm sure many of you have heard about, which would have reverse engineered UFO technology. But it never got off the ground, and because no such technology was ever recovered. Burchett is one of the several legislators who haven't been convinced by what they've heard, but he says the issue isn't just about the possibility of alien life. So a quote by them, our federal government's many departments tell us they don't exist, yet they're still being funded with tens of millions of dollars, Burchett said. They issue redacted reports about UFOs, and in our own Pentagon, it has not passed an audit in the history of audits, and it literally cannot account for over $500 billion. Okay, so that's a crazy point right there, okay? Because obviously, all of our tax paying dollars are going into this, and why aren't we seeing anything about it? Why is there no transparency? And I'm sure there are definitely some reasons for that. One reason that makes a lot of sense to me is obviously if a foreign power would see this technology, they would know what we have, if maybe we have something that's being developed. And who knows how we have some of these technologies developed. Like some of it could have come from crash retrieval programs. But if we admit to that, that's admitting to the world that we have that. The United States is what I mean by we. So, that's a good point there. I mean, it's a good point that, maybe all of our tax-paying dollars should, especially if a lot of this technology is, technology that could be free energy technology. I think a lot of this technology that could power a lot of things with free energy could also be very destructive if used in the wrong way. So I'm sure there's a lot of reasons for this, but I think one of the biggest reasons, and one of the biggest reasons in my opinion, when as I've watched this escalate over the past few years especially, is the fact that, maybe our government has been lying for a long time. Maybe this has been covered up for such a long time that it's kind of embarrassing for them to come out now and say that certain things have been hidden for so long. And I think that's a big reason for it personally. But moving on here. So Burchett added that he's heard enough testimony from qualified people, including Navy pilots, to not dismiss the issue. He also claims the government has sidestepped the Freedom of Information Act requests by using private contractors while investigating or recovering UAP technology. So that's really interesting. Basically, what he's saying is that there is a UFO crash retrieval team that is contracted by our government, but is not part of our government. So there are groups of individuals who are going out and recovering crash, things. It doesn't have to be, alien technology. Maybe it's something by foreign powers. So this is kind of dangerous, in my opinion, that this is separated from the government, these teams of people that they're sending out. They're not technically working for the government, so that could mean that, maybe some of these people don't have background checks and are read into a lot of different things that they shouldn't be read into. I don't know, but definitely very interesting. So continuing on here, the proposed bill must first pass committee before it can be brought to the House floor, where it can be voted on by all members. It would also have to pass the Senate, where Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has also pushed for UAP transparency and be signed by the president before becoming a law. I think this has a good chance of going through, though. I think the American people are asking for this and are ready for this, so we'll see what happens with it. So just coming back to the comments here. Okay, so moving on to the next topic. Oh, and good to see you here, Cryptid Huntress, Jessica. It's been a long time since I've seen you, girl. Love to see you again soon. All right, so moving on here. What to go into next? Okay. Okay, so this is kind of comedic news here. Oop. Okay, sorry, one second. Okay, so basically, scientists are looking to install nuclear-powered UFO detectors in space to lure aliens to Earth. So that is one of the headlines for tonight. So it sounds a little crazy, right? But apparently, a scientist has claimed that researchers are trying to build small handheld nuclear reactors to help lure aliens to our home planet. The idea is based on a long-held notion that aliens find it easier to detect nuclear reactors, radiation, or weapons. Some media reports in the past have even linked UFO sightings to nuclear sites across the planet. Kevin Nutt, the professor of physics at the University at Albany, said earlier this year that it's an idea that couldn't go wrong and that the mini handheld nuclear reactors are already being patented. We were trying to figure out how we could lure UFOs and work out how to make contact, he quoted as saying by Daily Star. We settled on the fact that UFOs have an interest in and an ability to detect nuclear weapons. Some of them underground, some of them in bunkers, or some of them in storage depots. The scientists added that the aliens seemingly have a special ability to detect this. How do they do this? Are they using neutrinos, which are really hard to detect, or gamma rays. We don't know. But my colleague has developed a new technology, which is basically a handheld lithium powered nuclear fission reactor, which he is now patenting, he told the audience. Ooh, sounds like someone might wind up dead soon. I don't know. That's kind of crazy. Um, so I don't know if this is, happening or not, but it makes sense because, I think it's pretty well known now that there has been a lot of UFO activity over nuclear bases around the planet. And apparently, no one's really been able to say what that is yet, or, because it seems to be planet wide and not just in America or, other countries, Russia, China, or whatever. It seems to be happening all over. So, maybe it's something that, is like some billionaire that is very like pro keeping the planet alive and is sending out his technology to keep things from happening. Who knows? Or maybe, it is, an ET presence coming in to try to intervene. So it's kind of interesting that they do seem to, whoever's doing this, whether it's ET or someone here, they seem to be able to detect when nuclear activity is being used or where it's being stored. So let's see. But everyone's saying, look, I'm looking at the comments right here. Leon the Wise says, I need that pocket fusion. Yeah. I think a lot of people would like that in regards to free energy, but also that sounds pretty dangerous, right? So who knows if that's ever going to end up being patented, but very interesting. Okay, so moving on. Okay, so with UFO news in Canada. Oh, what did I just do here? Oops. Okay, here we go. I thought this was a little interesting. So the politics in Canada are discussing UFOs, and let me see here. Okay, I just want to skip down a little bit here. So apparently, okay, so a U.S. intelligence agency wanted to meet with Transport Canada's lead on UFOs amid heightened interest and headline-grabbing news about the Pentagon's UFO research efforts in congressional hearings in the United States. But through multiple Freedom of Information requests, a CTV News.ca investigation shows the senior federal and transportation official repeatedly tried to downplay the enigmatic issue by contributing to contradictory media statements, pushing back against access to information requests, and deflecting questions to the Americans while also being involved in a UFO briefing for the transport minister's office. So, this is interesting. So in November 2022, oh, sorry, let me just skip down here. Okay, so apparently, in Canada, they're not taking the issue seriously. So I just want to quote what they're saying here. So there is no assigned lead for unidentified aerial phenomenon within Transport Canada. A Transport Canada spokesperson told CTV News.ca by email. Questions regarding service should be directed to the US government. Cavan Lynch, the retired Transport Canada pilot, also spent more than 2 decades flying for the Royal Canadian Air Force. He says service procedures were included in his initial RCAF training and are also clearly mentioned in a Canadian military flight planning and procedures manual. I do understand their frustration in dealing with all the access to information requests, Cavan Lynch said. Perhaps if they get serious about investigating UAP reports and sharing their results, those access to information requests wouldn't go away. So, just skipping down here. So basically, there's a new project called Sky Canada, and what it is the Sky Canada project can only be okay. Sorry, I'm just skipping through here. Okay, so basically, it seems like Canada is trying to get together their own UAP task force, but right now they're kind of having the same problem as the United States, where they're kind of unable to transparently release their UFO documents. So I just thought that was interesting, but I don't want to read all these quotes here. But just bring that up because this is something that's not just going on in the United States, but it's going on around the world. Over the past 4 years, I think we've heard a lot about different foreign powers talking about, transparency with UFOs or UAPs in their own country. So definitely very interesting. Okay, so moving on. Okay, so I thought this was really fascinating. So, international planet hunters unveil massive catalog of strange worlds. So basically, this is a list of scientists and amateur astronomers from around the world who came together to study different planets and what's been released, by the James Webb Telescope and things like that. Um, and basically, there's been all this research into what these different planets are and whether they're habitable. So this will kind of lead into the subject of tonight's show. So while thousands of planets have been discovered around other stars, relatively little is known about them. A NASA catalog featuring 126 exotic, newly discovered worlds includes detailed measurements that allow for comparisons with our own solar system. The catalog details a fascinating mix of planet types beyond our solar system, from rare worlds with extreme environments to ones that could possibly support life. The planets were analyzed by a large international team of scientists using NASA's Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite, TESS, in collaboration with the W.M. Keck Observatory on Mauna Kea, Hawaii. They are described in today's edition of the Astrophysical Journal supplement series. Relatively few of the previously known exoplanets have a measurement of both the mass and the radius. The combination of these measurements tell us that what these planets could be made of and how they are formed, said Stephen Kane, UC Riverside astrophysicist and principal investigator of the TESS Keck survey. With this information, we can begin to answer questions about where our solar system fits in the grand tapestry of other planetary systems, Kane said. The research team spent 3 years developing the catalog. They analyzed more than 13,000 radio velocity measurements to calculate the masses of 120 confirmed planets, plus 6 candidate planets spread out over the northern sky. Though planets themselves aren't visible, they do have a visible effect. As they orbit, the planets tug at their host stars, causing them to wobble. And when the star moves toward a telescope, its visible light turns slightly bluer. When it moves away from us, the light shifts slightly redder. This is much like how sound behaves. Due to the Doppler effect, a fire truck siren gets higher pitch as it travels closer and sounds lower pitch as it drives away, obviously. So these RV measurements let astronomers detect and learn the properties of these exoplanetary systems. And when we see a star wobbling regularly back and forth, we can infer the presence of an orbiting planet. Okay, so that's kind of like leading into the topic of tonight's show, which I wanted to get into. And Aussie Tiger here says, nice, more planets to explore. I like the sound of that. All right. So this actually just came out like 4 or 5 hours ago. And it's kind of coming out worldwide. But scientists have discovered a theoretically habitable planet. And it is Earth size. So here it is here. It kind of looks like Mars or something from just this photo. Okay, so two teams of scientists have discovered a theoretically habitable planet smaller than Earth but bigger than Venus, orbiting a small star about 40 light years away. The exoplanet named Gliese 12b orbits a cool red dwarf star situated in the constellation Pisces and is about 27% the size of our sun and 60% of its temperature, according to the new studies published on Thursday in the Astrophysical Journal Letters and Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society. Since since its star is so much smaller than the sun, Gliese 12b still falls within the habitable zone, the ideal distance away from a star where liquid water can exist, even though it completes its orbit about every 12.8 days. So, just pausing before I move on here. For me, when I see this, when I look at this, obviously it doesn't look much like Earth. You don't see large areas of water. But what's interesting about this is even if a planet is possible to be habitable, but maybe it doesn't have water yet, a lot of times, I think it was Michio Kaku discussed and Elon Musk have been discussing going to Mars and basically doing this way of this sort of thing of like shocking the atmosphere there with I think it's like some sort of satellite radiation or something like that. I forget what exactly they were doing with that, but basically they think that they can create an atmosphere or a greenhouse effect just by heating up the atmosphere a little bit or something like that. So obviously there are ways of possibly doing this, of creating an atmosphere or a greenhouse effect around a planet that isn't there already, if it is in a habitable zone where it could have water and things like that. So that's just what comes to mind for me when I first see this. But moving on, working on the assumption that the exoplanet doesn't have an atmosphere, scientists calculated its surface temperature to be around 107 degrees Fahrenheit, which I mean isn't too off normal for us, especially in some places around the world like Egypt. It normally is way hotter than that. So we found the nearest transiting temperature Earth-sized world located to date, said Misuyuki Kuzuhara, a project assistant professor at the Astrobiology Center in Tokyo, and co-leader of one of the research teams with a project assistant professor at the University of Tokyo. So temperate Earth-sized planets have been identified, scientists can then analyze them to determine which elements are contained in their atmospheres and, crucially, whether water is present to sustain life. There's only a handful of exoplanets we found that are good candidates for that. And this is our nearest, and so that's quite a major discovery. So, yeah, I'm just going to leave that at that there. So obviously there's a lot more of these worlds being discovered. But like I said, the new planet list that just came out by NASA has been making it easier for people to kind of look at this and examine it and spend more time focusing on planets that are better candidates. So there's a lot of this coming out right now. It's really exciting, actually. And obviously this is all because of the James Webb Telescope. Okay, so moving on here. Okay, so I'm not sure if any of you out there have seen the new Three Body Problem series that is on. Oops. Oh no. Might not be able to read this. Oh, okay. 1 second, guys. Just have to type in my email here so I can read this article. Okay, so sorry, let me pull this back up. Okay, so I don't know if any of you out there have read or seen the Three Body Problem, but apparently it just came out on Netflix. I haven't watched it yet, but I read it. And the Three Body Problem is a really incredible book because basically it covers all these scientific topics that relate to our civilization, how our civilization could interact with an extraterrestrial civilization and how it could be possible, and things in regards to that, such as the three body problem scientific equation. So it's really fascinating. And I think I read it a couple years ago or so now, and it just totally blew my mind apart. It really taught me a lot of things that like kind of opened my mind to other areas, such as like I said, the three body problem, but also type 1, type 2, type 3 civilizations are the Karshadev scale, which is also something you should definitely look into if you haven't already. But this is what's really fascinating about this is the author, he basically is this Chinese American author, and he kind of wrote it during the beginning of it's kind of loosely set in the Cultural Revolution in China. And it kind of focuses on these different scientists in China and them working on this program, which is basically an ESETI program, a program to search the universe for extraterrestrial life. And the scientist that's a part of this program ends up finding things, and it's this whole thing. I'm not going to ruin it; just go watch it. But an article came out about this, so I want to go ahead and read this. And okay, so basically this was put out by the National Geographic, but like I said, it's kind of focusing on the three body problem. What if aliens exist but they're just hiding from us? The dark forest theory explained. So the dark forest theory is another theory that was brought up in the three body problem. So the famed Fermi paradox has bewitched astronomers for more than half a century. To put it concisely, if the cosmos is nearly 14 billion years old, then where are all the interstellar societies? Why haven't they popped over to say hello? Myriad solutions to this conundrum have been proposed, but perhaps none more chilling than the dark forest theory. As the supposition holds, as the supposition holds, the reason we can't see these alien civilizations is because they're all in hiding. Unlike humanity, whose radio transmitters have long echoed throughout our local galactic neighborhood, these societies have all concluded that it's simply too dangerous to broadcast their location to potentially hostile neighbors. It's a sobering thought, and one that's gaining attention now that it's being depicted in Three Body Problem, a Netflix adaptation of author Cixin Liu's literary trilogy. But it is a plausible solution, but is it a plausible solution to the Fermi paradox? Of all the posited answers, experts say the dark forest hypothesis seems less likely to be correct. It's possible that there are several extraterrestrial intelligences, or ETIs, would conceal themselves, but it is improbable that all of them will come to the same fear-based conclusion and hide away. And I just want to throw in there, unless that's already happened a long time ago, where they already got to this point and interacted with an early version of our civilization and something bad happened. This could have happened before, a long time ago. Who knows? So we don't even see that some behavior or on cultures here on Earth. An astrophysicist, author, and folklorist, McTeer, says some ETIs might have members that all act in the same perfect unison, but others will have divergent, independently behaving groups. Some who trend more toward aggression or pacifism, curiosity, or reclusiveness. If one of them waves hello, then the dark forest will get a brightly lit campfire for us to see. So I'm just going to leave that there. Pretty cool stuff. And again, I highly recommend reading The Three Body Problem. It's a really amazing book. Read the book. Don't watch the movie. I mean, watch the series if you really have to, but the book is much better, I'm sure. Mustang here says, I'll get another spear. Thank you, Mustang. I appreciate that. That's always needed. I love making spear sales. Helps keep my show going. It's basically like my way of, a way of donating to me, but you get a present in return. Kind of the same thing. So thank you for that. Okay, so moving on here. Okay, so this is really fascinating. Scientists detect an anomaly underground near the Great Pyramid. The mysteries of the pyramids just got deeper. There's been a lot of talk before I even read this. I haven't even read this yet, but there's been a lot of talk of different things being found underground below the pyramids. And, from what I've heard, there's been several basically stacks of civilizations that they have to dig through to get to certain areas. And a lot of this has been kind of covered up. There's obviously the account. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the account by Herodotus, the historian, the ancient historian, who said that the time that he went to the Pyramid of Giza that has been recorded, there was a hall under it that showed all the pharaohs and kings all the way to the beginning of time, like basically like statues of them. So, that hasn't been found yet, or that hasn't been uncovered yet. And when I read this, I'm thinking that's probably what it is, because this was historically accounted for, was definitely there. And unless, I don't think it's been found already in our recent times. So I think it's highly likely that that could be what they found. That's my personal opinion. And, I've been to the Pyramid of Giza myself. I've been to Egypt myself, and it's quite the adventure being in that area. Just seeing it is really something, that's for sure. Makes you wonder what happened here thousands of years ago or more. So going on here, the pyramids at Giza continue to yield ancient secrets, but this time they come not from those towering wonders up above, but what's being described as an anomaly interred in the desert sands below. Okay, and I just want to add before going on here, something that I read before that just kind of blows my mind when it comes to the pyramids is, so I read the historical biography of Cleopatra, and I read something in it one time that really blew my mind, and that was that Cleopatra, we're closer now, or Cleopatra was closer to our time now than she was when she was born, than to the time, or no, she was closer to the time when she was born, basically to the pyramids. I'm sorry, I'm being distracted here. So basically, Cleopatra is closer to our time now. Like when she was born, is closer to our time now than she was to the time when the pyramids were supposedly built, when they were carbon dated to have been built. So that means that, there was a longer amount of time that passed from the time the pyramids were supposedly built, even though they're probably much older, which is, like 5,000 years ago or whatever. She was closer to our time now than to that time. So that means that by the time Cleopatra was reigning in the Egyptian empire, as it was known with the Hellenic line, ended, which was actually very close to the time that supposedly Jesus was born or died, roughly like within 100 years. So that basically means that it was already, the pyramids of Giza were already like a tourist destination at that time. And already in her time that she lived, she didn't know, she probably didn't know very much about how they were built, or the civilization that built them, because it was already so much time had passed. So I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, that's how far off that is in time. Like, a lot of people, when they think of the pyramids, they think of Cleopatra and these different pharaohs, but these pharaohs came a long time after they were built, a much longer time. So it's kind of crazy to think about. Okay, so moving on here. Using ground penetrating radar in combination with a technique known as electrical resistivity tomography, a team of researchers from Egypt and Japan has discovered two underground structures located below a cemetery on the west side of the Great Pyramid. Something, and it's not quite clear what, is buried even below those forbidding pyramidal tombs. As detailed in a new study, the structures appear to be stacked atop one another. The shallowest is L shaped and only around 6 feet underground and measures 33 feet by 49 feet. The lower structure is a tad smaller with an area of 33 feet by 33 feet, but is considerably deeper, reaching up to, and there's that number again, 33 feet below the surface. And I don't know if I have to say here why the number 33 is significant or who the number 33 is significant to, but I mean, so 33 is obviously something that was significant to the Freemasons and societies throughout time, for, probably centuries now, maybe even longer. So that's interesting that they're that length. There's something to that. So the site of the discovery, the Western Cemetery, has long fascinated archaeologists. It's tightly dotted with rectangular mud brick and limestone tombs called mastabas. One area of the cemetery, however, is conspicuously flat and empty, which has led experts to wonder if that patch's barren surface belies underground secrets. This is where ground penetrating radar and ERT came to fruition. The techniques, both staples of modern archaeology, allow scientists to see beneath the surface without disturbing the archaeological site. The former technique sends pulses of radio waves into the ground, measuring how they return to reveal the densities and compositions of the materials they encountered. So those ground surveys exhumed are curious structures which appeared as an anomaly due to their sharply different densities compared to the surrounding Earth. Their distinct shapes mean they're almost certainly human made. Moreover, the shallow structure appears to be packed with homogeneous sand, suggesting it was deliberately backfilled after construction, perhaps serving as an entrance to a deeper structure. That deeper structure shows up as a highly resistive anomaly, meaning it could be sand or even more tantalizingly, a void indicative of an empty man made chamber. We believe that the continuity of the shallow structure and deep large structure is important, they wrote in the study. For now, they can't precisely determine the materials causing the anomaly, but future ground surveys could change that. Well, hopefully someone digs it up soon because I'd like to see what's in there. Okay, so maybe one or two more things before I end the show tonight. Let me see here. Okay, so this is kind of important here. So basically, new revolutionary breakthroughs in warp drive technology. A new warp drive concept does twist space, doesn't move us very fast. So, a team of physicists has discovered that it's possible to build a real, actual physical warp drive and not break any known rules of physics. One caveat: the vessel doing the warping can't exceed the speed of light. So, you're not going to get anywhere interesting anytime soon. But this research still represents an important advance in our understanding of gravity. Einstein's general theory of relativity is a toolkit for solving problems involving gravity that connects mass and energy with deformations in spacetime. In turn, those spacetime deformations instruct the mass and energy how to move. In almost all cases, physicists use the equations of relativity to figure out how a particular combination of objects will move. They have some physical scenario, like a planet or orbiting star or two black holes colliding, and they ask how those objects deform space-time and what the subsequent evolution of the system should be. But it's also possible to run Einstein's math in reverse by imagining some desired motion and asking what kind of space-time deformation can make it possible. This is how the Mexican physicist Miguel Alcubierre discovered the physical basis for a warp drive. a long staple from the Star Trek franchise, of course. The goal of a warp drive is to get from A to B in the time between commercial breaks, which typically involves faster than light motion. But special relativity expressly forbids speeds faster than light. While this never bothered the writers of Star Trek, it did irritate Alcubierre. Sorry, I'm butchering this name here. He discovered that it was possible to build a warp drive through a clever manipulation of space-time, arranging it so that the space in front of the vessel gets scrunched up and the space behind the vessel stretched out. This generates motion without, strictly speaking, movement. It sounds like a contradiction, but that's just one of the many wonderful aspects of general relativity. So this warp drive avoids violations of the speed of light limit because it never moves through space. Instead, space itself is manipulated to, in essence, bring the spacecraft's destination closer to it. So that's interesting. Like it's like the craft kind of pulls it through space. So it's like, is it a little hard to explain there? I mean, I guess I just kind of explained it, reading it the best that it could be explained. But, this is really fascinating because, obviously the vehicle still can't move the speed of light, but that's just one breakthrough closer to being there. And that's very close to basically having warp drive technology. So it's pretty incredible. So while tantalizing, the design does have one fatal flaw. To provide the necessary distortions of space-time, the spacecraft must contain some form of exotic matter, typically regarded as matter with negative mass. Negative mass has some conceptual problems that seem to defy our understanding of physics, like the possibility that if you kick a ball that weighs negative 5 kilograms, it will go flying backwards, violating conservation of momentum. Plus, nobody has ever seen an object with negative mass existing in the real universe, ever. These problems with negative mass have led physicists to propose various versions of energy conditions as supplements for general relativity. These aren't baked into reality itself, but add-ons needed because general relativity allows things like negative mass that don't appear to exist in our universe. These energy conditions keep them out of relativity's equations. Their scientists' response to the unsettling fact that vanilla GR allows for things like superluminal motion, but the rest of the universe doesn't seem to agree. So the energy conditions aren't experimentally or observationally proven, but they are statements that concord with all observations of the universe. So most scientists take them rather seriously. And until recently, physicists have viewed those energy conditions as making it absolutely 100% clear that you can't build a warp drive even if you really wanted to. But there is a way around it, discovered by an international team of physicists led by Gerard Pierce at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. In the paper accepted for publication, the researchers dug deep into relativity to explore if any version of warp drive could work. The equations of general relativity are notoriously difficult to solve, especially in the complex cases such as warp drive. So the team turned to software algorithms. Instead of trying to solve the equations by hand, they explored their solutions numerically and verified that they conformed to the energy conditions. So the team did not actually attempt to construct a propulsion device. Instead, they explored various solutions to general relativity that would allow travel from point to point without a vessel undergoing any acceleration or experiencing any overwhelming gravitational tidal forces within the vessel, much to the comfort of any imagined passengers. They then checked whether these solutions adhered to the energy conditions that prevent the use of exotic matter. The researchers did indeed discover a warp drive solution, a method of manipulating space so that travelers can move without accelerating. There's no such thing as a free lunch, however, and the physicality of this warp drive does come with a major caveat. The vessel and the passengers can't can never travel faster than light. So that's basically it there. But like I said, one step closer. We're getting a little bit closer to discovering warp drive, and that's pretty close. So that's incredible. I mean, like basically what they're saying is that a physical like the way this technology works is like a physical object that would be containing the people that are traveling through space won't be able to go the speed of light. But that makes me wonder if obviously this physical object has to have a negative mass in it, but maybe there's a different way of creating an object that maybe isn't so physical or so dense that could be used for this. So that's something to think about. And I think that's the next solution to their problem, to figuring this out. So we'll see, if this has been figured out, that's just one more step. And who knows, maybe in the next 10, 20 years, we'll have this down. Pretty exciting. All right. So just going back to the comments here. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining here tonight. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. And let me see. Before I go here, I want to remind you all, I did play the Shaman Spears commercial at the beginning, but I just want to again share my website and let you know that anyone who purchases a spear, and here's my new elemental collection here, but if anyone purchases a spear, they actually get a free scroll. It's like an ancient scroll. There's a certification that kind of talks about what it means to have one. So highly recommend purchasing one of these because I'll send that to you next day shipping on all orders. Also, go back here. Battle for Disclosure is a comic book I've been working on in association with the Cousins Brothers, ThirdPhaseOfMoon. And basically, it was illustrated by Brent Cousins and has been mostly written by me and Blake Cousins. So we are on the third book in the series right now. We already have 2 released, and that is on Amazon under Battle for Disclosure. So you're actually looking at the second one right now. I believe the second one is Air Force Down. The first one is oh no, this is the second one, sorry. But yeah, so pretty cool stuff. It basically kind of mirrors what's going on in the world with UFO disclosure, but in a fictional way. But there's some characters in it that I think you'll recognize. And you can order it right now on Kindle for $5.99 or get your own physical copy on paperback for $11.99. So again, check that out on Amazon.com, Battle for Disclosure. All right. Thanks everyone for joining me tonight. And until next time on Apollo's Odyssey, over and out.